let's go ahead and get it rolling right now with Tennessee's football schedule strength being ranked. What? This cannot be the case. I thought it would be like maybe top 25. It's way higher than that. So what the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
What the H? Today brought to you by Craft Treats. Go to crafttreats.com. Use the promo code OffTheHook to get 20% off. Off the Hook to get 20% off. And you'll be taken care of with chill pills that will help with your pet's digestive issues or pain issues from arthritis. Also, with that CBD derivative, they can help with anxiety. Use the promo code OffTheHook, crafttreats.com. Off the Hook promo code, get 20% off. So, Tennessee's schedule, I've looked at it. I feel like I have a pretty good working knowledge of the Vols. I would say if you just ask me without knowing, we went over this in our production meeting at 5 a.m. each and every day. But if you ask me without knowing, I would say, Caleb, top 20 at best. So where are the Vols in terms of strength of schedule? Because this is important if it comes down to Tennessee is around that 4 or 5 mark. It's not like the old BCS days where it was formulaic. We have a committee, but this is significant. And I was frankly surprised, but I think it's good news for the Vols.
Yeah, so the FPI, Football Power Index, based on the FPI projections of every team, has Tennessee football schedule strength at number 8, which is 5th in the SEC. So it's in the higher end of the SEC. And even if it was just in the SEC West, Tennessee would have the 4th highest schedule if they played in the SEC West behind Ole Miss, Auburn, and Arkansas, which is really, really weird because, Dave, you and I both look at this and look, these are this is analytically based. This isn't some bias or somebody doing shoddy reporting. No, this is based on numbers. They're saying based on the way they formulate the FPI, Tennessee is projected to have the 8th toughest strength of schedule this year, which blows my mind because I've been saying for a while the biggest reason 11-1 is on the table is because their schedule is a lot easier than it looks. The only thing I could think of is the FBI does take margin of victory and returning talent into account, and they take road games into account. When you factor all those in, I know you don't like to hear it, Dave, but there's a lot of data to suggest Missouri could be a very dangerous team this year, which adds to the toughness. Vanderbilt finished strong last year, and Kentucky is still always a relatively tough team under Mark Stoops. So maybe that's where they're getting it from.
So how much of this, and you may not know, but if this is flip-flopped, in terms of this is an even number year where you have Florida at home, you have Alabama at home, as opposed to vice versa. How much do you think that affects it?
A lot. I think largely because the teams right below Florida and Alabama, their other 2 road games are 2 SEC teams that are considered by the FPI to be dangerous this year, which are Kentucky and Missouri. So quite honestly, Tennessee's only tough home game is Georgia. And maybe South Carolina, which I would believe the FPI would be high on. Yeah, but outside of those 2, I don't see them being that high on Texas A&M because they do base pass production. And what we saw last year from Texas A&M shouldn't suggest that the FPI would rate them high. So I think it becomes pretty clear that Tennessee, by and large, their tougher games are on the road this year, with that one major exception of Georgia.
Sure. So Tennessee plays in Nashville, Virginia. We both think that's going to be a win. Austin Peay in Neyland Stadium, that'll be a win. Then they go to Florida at Gainesville. It's always a tough place to play, and there are going to be talented players on the field, but this is not a program that is in the best of shape. And then the University of Texas San Antonio is better than a lot of people might think. They got a pretty good quarterback coming back, but that's still probably a winnable, almost surefire win game. South Carolina, we've talked about the revenge factor. How much does that play into it? We could say the same thing on Missouri's side of it if we want to. So they host South Carolina, Texas A&M, then at Alabama, Kentucky in Lexington. UConn should be a win. Missouri, again, it's going to be a revenge game for them. Georgia at Neyland Stadium, that's the national champion. So that's going to be a tough game. Then Vanderbilt at home as well. So I look at the schedule, and I think there's only one surefire loss if you want to take a step back and be objective, just because of where Georgia's program is. We would have said the same thing about Alabama last year, but that's the only one that they're going to be significant underdogs in. And by significant, Caleb, I mean 7 points or more. Is that fair?
Yeah, I agree. I think what they're looking at is there's like tiers with the schedule strength. When it comes to like top tier powerhouse foes, Tennessee is not near the same level as a lot of other teams in terms of the schedule strength that they have. But what you see is, and by the way, this used to go in basketball all the time. Bruce Pearl was a master manipulator of this, and I never blamed him when he was at Tennessee. One of his focuses was to, when you have those sure November and December wins in college basketball, he would say, let's play the best team from these smaller conferences because they're sure wins, but that helps us manipulate the RPI to have a higher strength of schedule by numbers. And I think that's what's happening here, which is that lower tier teams that Tennessee should beat, there's a lot more of those on Tennessee's schedule this year than in previous years. But those lower tier teams happen to be on the higher end of the lower tier teams in college football. I mean, UTSA, we're talking about it, Texas San Antonio, they're one of maybe the 5 best group of 5 schools in college football this year. If you were to rank group of 5 programs in college football, you'd have Texas San Antonio in the top 5. Now, Tennessee should beat all those teams by 30, 35, 40. But at the same time, that still technically skews the schedule strength in their favor.
Okay, so where does the rest of the SEC, in particular the SEC East, rank in terms of schedule strength?
So the rest of the SEC East, Tennessee is second. Only Florida is ahead of them Florida's number 3 in the nation and second in the SEC overall. Ole Miss has the toughest schedule in the country, and they're ranked number 1. Auburn is ranked number
1 in the nation?
Number 1 in the nation, yeah. Ole Miss is ranked number 1 in the nation. By the way, again, sometimes this is skewed because think about this for a minute. Let's just take Florida, for instance, and Tennessee. Those 2 teams have to play Georgia. That beefs up their strength of schedule. Well, Georgia can't play Georgia to beef up their own strength of schedule. So by being elite, a lot of times that's going to hurt your strength of schedule on the numbers. And that makes it a little tricky, but that's why Georgia and Alabama are not in the top 10. But yeah, Ole Miss is number 1. Minnesota is number 2, and that's a shocker too because they're in the Big Ten West. And again, who considers the Big Ten West that elite? I mean, that's barely a Power 5 division. And then you have Florida number 3, Maryland number 4. Maryland makes sense because they have to play Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. Auburn number 5, Arkansas number 6, Michigan State number 7, Tennessee number 8, Rutgers number 9, and Indiana number 10, and South Carolina comes in right at number 11.
It's a good news for Tennessee that, I mean, their schedule didn't change overnight, but the simple fact is it's viewed as one of the toughest schedules in the nation. So if you woke up, nothing changed as of the middle of the night. The schedule didn't change, but this does help Tennessee. I would think that these guys on the committee take a look at strength of schedule. Sometimes I don't know what they're thinking, but if you're top 10, to me, really, if you're top 20 to top 25 in the schedule ranking, Caleb, you should be considered even keel with everyone else. That would be my take on that. You should be considered that you have played a tough enough schedule to be considered with the top teams in the nation, and that it shouldn't be a factor. It's when you get down to the 40s and the 50s that it should be held against you. But to me, everybody in the top 20, top 25 is kind of a wash there as far as if you're in that top 20, top 25, I'm not going to hold schedule against you.
I'm pretty much right where you are. It's partially because a lot of times people can't fully control the schedule strength. I mean, you make these schedules 3-4 years in advance. I'm pretty sure when Tennessee scheduled Syracuse on the road to open the 98 season, they didn't think they were playing the eventual Big East champions and Donovan McNabb. That wasn't in the cards. And so it's hard to really, you're right, I'm with you. When you can control if you have a top 20 to 25 schedule, you can't really control if anything changes within that. And yeah, this day and age, this was what always separated to me when people always said, could Boise State or UCF back in the day, they'll beat one Power 5 team that's in the top 10 or top 15 in a bowl game or at the start of the year, and everybody will say, we'll see, they can compete. It's like, okay, yeah, you can do that one time when you have a month or months to prepare. But can you do that against at least above average Power 5 teams on a week in and week out basis? No, you can't. And that's why I don't know if you ever did. I never put stock into Boise State beating Georgia in 2011 or Boise State beating Oklahoma in 2007 or UCF beating Auburn in 2017.
Yeah. I have a comment from the message board. A&M and Carolina are two death trap games. They might not be top tier, but SC was a 2-score dog last year in Columbia, and they beat our butts. I don't remember you playing, but while A&M is most likely going to be much better this year, the biggest trap game to me, if I ranked them, would be Kentucky 1, A&M, which you and I differ a little bit on 2. I guess and then I would go Missouri, South Carolina, trap game. Trap game to me is one you overlook. You're not going to overlook South Carolina after what happened last year. No chance.
Yeah, so I got 2 trap games and that's it, which is I've got Kentucky on the road, which is indeed a trap game. Even though you're not going to overlook Kentucky. The good news for Tennessee is because I believe Kentucky is right after Alabama. And so really Kentucky's a trap game in that it could be a hangover game more than anything. And then, yes, Missouri is a trap game because you could overlook Missouri looking to Georgia. South Carolina, I don't see that as a trap game. Tennessee has a bye after the South Carolina game. They're not going to overlook that. Texas A&M is theoretically a trap game because Alabama's right after, but I don't think they're a trap game. I'm insisting the bottom's going to fall out. I may be eating crow because I'm saying this, I feel like every other day on our show, but I have a feeling that A&M's going to go 3-9 this year. This Jimbo Fisher, Bobby Petrino experiment's not going to work out.
Well, I don't think it will either, but the one thing I do like about the hire, I think Bobby Petrino is a fundamental guy, so he could have them play cleaner football. I'm not saying he's going to have them play an innovative football, but cleaner football in year 1, and that could be his impact. Then there's kind of a glass ceiling. Today's tough question now brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, as the Vols get the final word from Euros.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, your home in Knoxville for local vision care, whether that is LASIK, cataracts, or just your regular annual visit. That's them.